To start your coil pot, you're going to need to make a base. So that the base is what we call the very bottom of your pot. So what I'm doing here is I've got a rolling pin and some newspaper, and I'm rolling my clay out nice and flat, but not too thin, because I still want my base to be thick enough to hold my coils that I'm going to do on top of it. When my piece of clay is nice and flat and I think it's the right thickness, I'm going to cut out a circle. So you could do this using just by eye, so you could just try to make a circle from your eye, or you could use something circular. So I've got a piece of plastic pipe, so I'm using my potter's knife to cut around the pipe, and that's going to give me a nice circular base for my coil pot. When you've finished making your base, you can put that to one side, and then you're going to need to make some coils. So you see what I've done is I've gotten my piece of clay and I've squidged it into roughly a sausage shape with my hands before I start to coil it. So making a coil is kind of like making a snake or a sausage shape. And the really important thing to remember is to use your fingers and not your palms. So if you use the palm of your hand, sometimes your coils can get a little bit flat. But if you use your fingers, and as you roll your coil, spread your fingers out. So start from the middle and roll and roll and roll, and keep spreading your fingers out. So don't keep them all caught up together. So when you've got a really nice long coil, you can start attaching it onto your base. So just follow the outside of your base and stick the coil on. And if your coil is a little bit too long, you can just squeeze it to take off the extra bit of clay, and then you can push down that bit of coil and smooth it down. Now another important thing to remember is when you're adding the next coil on top, you need to make it start at a different point to the previous coil. So if all our coils joined at the same place, then we'd have a line down our pot, and that would make a weak spot on our pot. So each coil is going to join at a different part of the pot. When you've got about 3 coils high on your pot, it's about time to start blending those coils together before you add any more coils. So what you're going to do you see in my video, I've got one hand on the inside supporting my pot while I blend the outside with my finger. So something important to remember about doing this is always push the clay across the lines, up and down, so that the clay is moving across those lines and filling them in. Sometimes if we squeeze the clay, our pot can become really, really thin, and we don't want that to happen, because sometimes it can get too thin and maybe break. So as long as we keep one hand on the inside and the other hand just going across the coils, then we're going to have a nice strong pot. When you've finished blending the outside of your pot, you need to blend the inside of your pot as well. So you can see in the video, I've got one hand on the outside of my pot to support it while I'm blending the inside coils of my pot. And again, I'm going down across the coils, down across the lines, and blending that clay all together. And I can also blend the very bottom close to the base, and I can smooth that out to make sure that there's no gaps there. So after you've blended your 3 coils, you can add some more coils to your pot if you want to make it taller. So I'm going to add another couple of coils to my pot to make it a little bit taller, and each time I add a coil now, I'm going to blend it and smooth it down with my finger. And once you've got the inside and the outside nice and smooth, don't forget about that base. So now that your pot has a few layers and it's quite tall, you can turn it upside down and just give a little smooth to the edges on the base. And one last thing that you can do to smooth down your pot is you could use a tool. So I've got a blue plastic tool here, and I'm smoothing down the sides of my pot so that I've got a nice smooth surface to add my decoration. If you want to, when you're finished all your smoothing, you can use your fingers just to squeeze around the rim of your pot to make it have a little bit of a narrower, thinner rim. But that's up to you if you want to do that or not. So now that you've got a lovely smooth pot, it's time to add some decoration. So you can use some of the objects and items that you found out on your walk to add some really nice designs to your pot. So remember, when you're pushing in the objects to make texture on your pot, always remember, just like when you were smoothing your pot and blending the clay together, always support the inside of your pot because it's still quite wet, the clay. So if you just push from one side, it might make a dent in your pot. So always put your hand on the inside of your pot, so then you're supporting it from the inside while you do your decoration. I quite like making repeat patterns, so I'm repeating the steps over and over to make a repeated pattern. But you can do whatever design you like. You could maybe use a stick or a piece of plastic that you found, whatever way you like, whatever way you want to decorate, that's up to you. Just have fun with it.